we can allow this taxation to take place as workers if we have increments in our salaries. So we are looking at if we don't have immediate increments in our salaries, then workers cannot afford to pay for housing tax of 1.5% and the so proposed NHIF tax of 2.75%, and the several taxes that are covered under VAT that are going to affect the communities in China.
Meanwhile, the university dons have faulted the proposed university funding model, which they will fail terribly since it lacks a proper structure on how it will be implemented.
Taxes, please increase our salary. That's what we are saying. Because in this country now, anybody with a pay slip, he is an enemy. So, and the pay slip is being depleted each and every day. So what we are telling the President and the National Assembly, please increase our salary. You can increase even our salary to 1 million. In fact, in this country, after independence, lecturers were earning more than even MCS, but MPs. Even MPs. But now we are being taxed, and yet our salary is not going up.
The earlier model is far much better than the new model, because the new model, as I've said, it is going to categorize students from extreme need to those less needy. So it's going to disadvantage. So we don't know how they are going to say this person is extremely needy and vulnerable and so on. So it's
Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Mashogu has identified the economic state of the country as the underlying cause for the delayed and inadequate allocation of capitation funds. Concurrently, he has provided reassurance to teachers that measures will be taken to enhance the funding system for students, effectively addressing the current deficit owed to various schools.
I'm struggling and working hard to ensure that the figures don't come down. So I'm sure that the National Treasury will be able to cooperate, because we know the circumstances in which we are all operating.
Victor Nzobeli for EBN TV.
Now, still on matters education, members of the University Academic Staff Union have expressed discontent with the recently signed finance bill by President William Ruto. These academic staff members are deeply concerned about the potential negative impacts of certain proposed levies on the academic community. They are calling on the head of state to reconsider these measures in order to safeguard the future of education. Victor Nzobeli with the report.
University Academic Staff Union UASU members drawn from University of Eldoret have expressed their displeasure in the now signed into law finance bill by President William Ruto, while at the same time petitioning the head of state to reconsider some of the proposed levies.
Solidarity! Solidarity!
Led by their chairperson, Dr. Nyaberi Mogaka, the members revealed that their national unions will consider exerting pressure on the government should their demands be ignored.
So we are asking of two things. We can allow this taxation to take place as workers if we have increments in our salaries. So we are looking at if we don't have immediate increments in our salaries, then workers cannot afford to pay for housing tax of 1.5% and the so proposed NHIF tax of 2.75%, and the several taxes that are covered under VAT that are going to affect the communities in China.
Meanwhile, the university dons have faulted the proposed university funding model, which they will fail terribly since it lacks a proper structure on how it will be implemented.
Taxes, please increase our salary. That's what we are saying. Because in this country now, anybody with a pay slip, he is an enemy. So, and the pay slip is being depleted each and every day. So what we are telling the President and the National Assembly, please increase our salary. You can increase even our salary to 1 million. In fact, in this country, after independence, lecturers were earning more than even MCS, but even MPs. But now we are being taxed, and yet our salary is not going up.
The earlier model is far much better than the new model, because the new model, as I've said, it is going to categorize students from extreme need to
Now, missing former senior Treasury official Tom Osinde has been found dead, as police report indicates. The body of the ex-Treasury staff was recovered in River Kuja in Migori County, ending almost 2 weeks of search. Police officers involved in the search disclosed that the body was already decomposing when it was found. According to the police report, the body was found on June 22nd and has been lying in the mortuary without officials knowing it was Osinde. The deceased brother Enoch Nemuel Osinde confirmed the report, saying the family had positively identified the body. The latest development comes a day after police arrested 2 suspects concerning Osinde's disappearance. A developing story that we'll be keeping tabs on to see where exactly the detectives will get with the investigations, what new reports will be found, and we'll be updating you on our subsequent bulletins. But at this point, allow me to quickly take you through the newspapers. So I do have 3 of them: the Daily Nation, the Standard, and the Star. Now, the Daily Nation this morning: senior high schools in race against time. This year marks the end of the Kenya Certificate of Primary Examinations, which are called KCPE, and the country's preparedness to implement senior secondary school in 2.5 years dominated debate in the Kenya Secondary Head Schools Association annual conference in Mombasa, with major concerns being raised about inadequate infrastructure and teacher training to handle the first cohort of CBC learners, as well as funding in the students' choice of pathways. Basically, the last cohort that will be sitting for KCP examinations will be this year, sometime later in October. And so what is left now is for the CBC preparedness for the junior secondary school students to now start coming in. Remember, the CBC curriculum is a 2663 model, 2 years in preschool, what we call PP1, PP2, 6 years in primary school all the way to grade 6, 6 years in secondary school, Form 1 to Form 6, and then 3 years in university. And so what we're expecting is that the cohort that will be doing the KCP this year will be the last for the 844 system, before we can now start talking about the grade 6 to junior secondary school. So senior high schools in race against time, as it takes much more than just speaking. It needs capitation, it needs implementation of different policies. It needs schools to prepare themselves by building a lot of classrooms so as to hold the huge number of students that will be coming in. Also, it's that mindset of trying to shift it for students to understand that now we are moving away from the norm, which is 844, and we are moving into the CBC curriculum, which I say it is 2663. And so that is what the Daily Nation is focusing on: race against time for senior high school intake. Ministry of Education officials are racing against time to prepare for senior secondary schools intake, and in 2.5 years, with major concerns being raised about inadequate infrastructure and teacher training to handle the first cohort of the competency-based curriculum learners. The preparedness of secondary schools to implement SSS, which is Senior Secondary School, yesterday dominated debate at the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association. This year marks the end of KCP exams, which means 844 class will be over and done with. The current grade 7 pupils will join senior secondary schools in 2026, marking the first transition from junior secondary school. So what we have now are students who are in grade 7, and they will be joining senior secondary schools in 2026, which is about I'd say 3 years from now. Now, the Ministry of Education is expected to develop an implementation matrix and issue guidelines for the JSS. Now, you can speak to us and do tell us, what are your challenges are so far. What are your thoughts as well with regards to the race against time to switch to senior high? But also top of the page, Osinde's body lay in mortuary as family made frantic search. The badly decomposed body of former Treasury employee Fred Tom Mokaya Osinde lay at the Migori Referral Hospital mortuary unidentified for a week as his family frantically searched for him. That is a story that is on page 2 of the Daily Nation. Now, the former Treasury employee went missing on June 18th, from Nakuru home, and his body was found 4 days later in Migori. Close family members kept off the media as they searched for him, not knowing that their kin had apparently been killed and the body dumped in River Kuja. Police in Rongo said they were alerted by area residents of the body. It was dressed in a black vest and a brown t-shirt. The rest of the body was naked. Now, the recovery of the body follows a frantic search for Osinde in both Rongai, Nakuru County, where he has a home, and in Nyamira, where he hails from. Osinde's brother Enoch Masinde wrote on Facebook on Thursday, says, "Thank you, friends and family, for your outpouring love of prayers and support during my brother's search. Unfortunately, the outcome isn't the one we anticipated." Now, Osinde's relatives transferred his body to Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital mortuary, awaiting a post-mortem examination. The grieving family members declined to address the media. So details are still scanty on what exactly happened to Osinde. Remember, his vehicle was found abandoned. He'd been missing. The frantic calls and search for him. So basically, no one knows what happened, but of course, you're allowed to always have your own opinion and come to a conclusion of what happened. But it is best that we do wait for police report to really identify what happened, what killed him after that post-mortem, is done on his body, to just identify what are some of the injuries he might have had, what caused his death, as well as the tracing of his whereabouts. Daily Nation as well, top of the page, talks about how Kenyans are beating the tough times with a sharp rise in cost of living, leaving many unable to afford the lifestyles they were used to. They are resorting to cut down on consumption of basic necessities, shop around for cheaper alternatives, or avoid them altogether. So you'd have to adjust to a different way of living, perhaps not buying things in bulk, preferring to buy things, one by one at a shop, or preferring to cut off some of the things you used to take. You decide, that's not really of essential. Let's now just stick to the basics, So really, it's just about how to beat the tough times, how to maneuver around it, try to cut on the spending of what you're using, what you're doing at home. And of course, that is something perhaps you should be expecting for the next couple of years. Now, to the Standard newspaper. Judges demand 1.2 billion shillings from Ruto for Uhuru's sins, quote unquote. Judges demand 1.2 billion shillings from Ruto for Uhuru's quote unquote sins. Seeking justice, former President Uhuru Kenyatta's failure to appoint judges nominated by the Judicial Service Commission in August 2019 has come to haunt Kenyans. The 22 judges now want President William Ruto's administration to compensate them for being kept in the cold for over 20 months by the Jubilee regime. Now, I'll take that again. The 22 judges who, weren't sworn in immediately, they were appointed, now want President William Ruto's administration to compensate them for being kept in the cold for over 20 months by the Jubilee regime. Orders sought by the judges include one, declaration that failure by the president to appoint them for 22 months was a violation of Articles 2, 3, 10, 27, 28, and 47 of the Constitution. They also want a declaration that the president's action were in violation of right to inherent dignity, right to fair administrative action. They also say a finding that the state, through the actions of the president to cast aspersions without proof, was against the judge's right to dignity as provided in Article 28 of the Constitution. They also want an order for compensation for states' abuse of power against the judges, Attorney General to issue a public apology to the judges for humiliation, uncertainty, and inconvenience caused by violation of the rights, costs of the petition, as well as interest at court's rate from the date of judgment until payment in full. So the judges, remember the judges that were appointed to the High Court but were failed to be sworn in by former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Well, now they want 1.2 billion shillings as compensation for what they call cost of the petition, compensation for state abuse of power. And so that is quite an interesting way to view things, or to to file that petition in court. And it's just will mark the start of a battle between themselves and the regime under President William Ruto. So what does each judge want? Justice Edward Waboto says he wants general and unaggravated damages, not quantified in particular. Justice Jacqueline Mogeni wants 65 million shillings as general and aggravated damages. Now, Justice Dr. Fred Nyagaka, damages computed on his salary at entry as a judge minus what he earned as a lecturer while waiting. Also 6 orders in main petition not quantified yet. Justice Lillian Gathoni wants 50 million shillings as general and aggravated damages. Justice Joseph Mugo Kamau wants 16.5 million shillings for salary delays for 22 months. Justice Christopher Kyanya wants 50 million shillings as general and aggravated damages. Justice Lucas Naikuni wants 75 million. Justice Ocharo Kebireira, not quantified but states he could renew 50 million shillings indemnity in time. Justice David Njagi wants 100 million shillings compensation. Justice David Mwangi wants 50 million shillings. Justice Christine Nontatwa wants 50 million. So each judge has their own request, what they want to be compensated. Others have not been quantified, others have been quantified as they seek, the state to compensate them for that. Now, top of the page as well, tracing last hours of slain former Treasury official. That is a story that is on page 4 of the Standard. Police trace final hours of Osinde as 2 staff held. Now, according to the Standard, on Sunday, June 18th, Tom Osinde goes missing while reportedly traveling from Nakuru to Kisii. On Monday, June 19th, Tom Osinde's driver spotted driving Osinde's car in his village in Nyamira. On Thursday, June 22nd, Tom Osinde's car is found abandoned and vandalized in Kilgoris in Narok town. On Wednesday, June 28th, police arrest 2 workers at the home of Osinde in Gata in Nakuru. On Thursday, June 29th, the body of Osinde is found in River Kuja. And Tom Osinde was brother to the late Ambassador Ken Osinde, who was a chief of staff in the office of Deputy President. Ken Osinde died in Nairobi Hospital in October 2021 after a short illness. So as you can see, it's just trying to retrace his final steps and at what point did things go Ori. Now, top of the page as well, Raila setback as IBC panel says we are working and pain at the pump. Fuel prices to go up tonight as the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority says it takes effect, the 16% VAT. So they will be announcing new fuel prices, and I can assure you it's not that they're going to announce it, it will be lowering the cost of fuel. The prices will be much higher than what it is at now or for the month of June. So that is something you also need to keep an eye on. Pain at the pump is fuel prices to go up at midnight. And then finally, the Star, death threats force former IBC commissioner to flee the country. Death threats force the former IBC commissioner to flee the country. Now, the former IBC commissioner has fled the country, the Star can authoritatively report. That is the newspaper. Irene Masit, who is among the 4 commissioners who challenged the election of William Ruto as president, quietly left the country on Tuesday over what sources described as an ending and chilling death threats. Masit becomes the second high-profile commissioner to flee the country in less than 6 years after Roslyn Akombe did the same in 2017. Akombe secretly left the country a week to the repeat of the 2017 presidential elections, following what she said were threats to her life, which she could not take lightly. after the brutal murder of IT manager Chris Musando. Now, Masit, who was fired from the helm of the IBC by a tribunal, is said to have been under a lot of pressure from people known to her to apologize for having opposed Ruto's election. So Irene Masit, according to the Star, has left the country, perhaps in a bid to keep herself and her family safe from what is called or termed death threats. Busia holds requiem mass for 7 children killed in car crash. Busia holds requiem mass for 7 children killed in car crash, as well as cops investigate dragging angle in Osinde murder, and why Nairobians should brace for higher water bills. So those are the stories making headlines on top of the pages this morning, the local dailies. So allow us to take a quick breather. When we'll come back, we have much more on the other side. Stay with us.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Bwana Yesu asifiwe, watazamaji wa EBN. Kwa majina naitwa Pastor Julius Mutuko, na nataka kukaribisha kwa kipindi ambacho tutakuwa tukisikiliza neno la Mungu kila siku ya Ijumaa na Jumamosi kuanzia saa 3:30 jioni hadi saa 4:30 kila siku kwa lisali moja, na hivyo tukiangazia true worship ama kuabudu halisi, ambapo tukiangalia Biblia kitabu cha Yohana 4:23-24, Yesu alipokuwa akiongea na mwanamke Msamaria alimwambia wakati unakuja ambapo watu watamwabudu Baba katika roho na kweli, kwa maana Baba ni roho ama Mungu ni roho, na yuwatafuta watu kama hao ili wakamwabudu. So nami tukaweze kujua kuabudu halisi ni nini kwa siku hizo. Karibuni nyote in Jesus name. Asanteni.
Faith for today is a show to look at what is going on in your life and what needs the intervention of God in your life.
Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the proof of things we do not see.
We are here for you. We are not here only for ourselves.
We are live every Tuesday and Thursday from 9 a.m. We boost your faith.
It is time to revive your faith.
Faith is for now, faith is for today. God has given us the breath of life.
Your faith today, live with Reverend Felix Kavoy.
watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Now, still on the standard, this morning IBC selection panel lays grounds to recruit 7 commissioners. The selection panel has refuted claims of suspending operations after orders from the executive. 925 Kenyans applied to be IBC commissioners, while 25 post of IEBC chairperson. The bipartisan talks that prioritized reconstitution of the IEBC have seemingly collapsed, but the IEBC selection panel is up and running. Now, in an exclusive interview with this newspaper, The Standard, the IEBC selection panel chairperson Nelson Makanda dismissed claims that their operations were suspended to give room for the bipartisan talks aimed at resolving political differences between President William Ruto and Azimio leader. He says the IEBC panel is still working and has not abandoned its duties. The panel is in office, according to the chairperson of that selection panel. He says, as a matter of fact, we are sitting tomorrow afternoon at 2:30 p.m. and there is nothing to hide. Now, Dr. Makanda said the selection panel took a break on their own volition when political temperatures heightened in the country and denied allegations that they got orders from President William Ruto to halt operations until a resolution is reached. So this is what Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga has been up and about, trying to, stop, says, the selection process of the IEBC commissioners should be, in a different way, should involve the extra parliamentary way, and just the constitution of the selection panel is what he was against. But as we speak, the panel is up and running and says they are working, and we'll also be waiting to see how things really develop, because remember, the bipartisan talks is at this particular point, we can say they're not in talks of any kind after the Azimio team withdrew themselves from the selection team or selection or from the bipartisan talks. And so it's just a matter of wait and see, and we'll have to look at just some of the other options that Raila Odinga will have. If not, then the selection panel will be up and running. We'll have to decide about 6 commissioners from the 925 people that have applied, as well as 1 chairperson out of the possible 25. So quite a vigorous process, we'd say, rigorous as well, just looking at the amount of candidates that have tabled themselves to take over after the former commissioners. At the moment, the IEBC does not have any commissioner. What it just has is a chief executive officer. His name is Hussein Majan Hussein. That is the only person that is, we can say, at the helm of the leadership at the IEBC. Other than that, there is no commissioner in place. So in the case of the by-election that we're expecting in one of the wards in Mombasa County, where the MCA, in one of the wards in Tana River, where the MCA perished in a car accident. So who will conduct the by-elections? That's a key question, because there has to be commissioners in place, despite the fact that, we also have the IEBC returning officers within the counties, but it is also of importance to have commissioners in place. Now, still on the standard, Senator warns against sacking 500 health workers on contract. Nakuru governor goes against promise to hire them on permanent basis. Senators say sending the worker homes or the workers home would weaken healthcare provision. So Nakuru County government's decision to terminate contracts for over 500 healthcare workers has put Governor Susan Kihika's policy on recruitment of staff on the radar. Senator Tabitha Karanja has warned of a major healthcare crisis following the move to send home over 500 contracted healthcare workers. Karanja urged the county executives to instead absorb the workers permanently and warned of possible loss of lives and pain among hundreds of patients. This came as the affected workers held a go-slow at Nakuru County Referral Teaching and Hospital to protest what they termed unfair dismissal. Last week, the county terminated services of 538 technical staff following the expiry of their contract on June 30th. The move sparked huge hue and cry, with Kihika being challenged to keep her campaign promise of employing workers permanently once she took office. So healthcare workers in Nakuru County, about 500 of them, have been laid off. Now to the top of the page story on the Star. Busia holds requiem mass for 7 children killed in car crash. And of course, somber mood in the county after the 7 children passed away in a road accident, and the Busia County having to hold the requiem mass for all the children that perished. Now, Otoma leads start of final journey for the 7 pupils killed in car crash. The mass was conducted in preparation for the learners' final send-off that is set to begin on July 1st. 2 of the pupils will be interred on July 1st, while the remaining 5 will be laid to rest on July 7th and July 8th. The mass was held at Busia Polytechnic Playfield. Governor Paul Otoma, Matayos Member of Parliament Godfrey Odanga, the acting county commissioner Kipchumba Ruto, and county chief executive committee members are among the leaders who joined mourners in reciting final prayers for the miners who died at Kaburengo, a deadly black spot near Webuye town, that claimed their lives. 4 of the learners died on the spot when the accident occurred, while 2 others breathed their last on admission to the Webuye County Hospital. The number of those whose lives the horrific accident claimed, however, later rose to 7 after another pupil succumbed to injuries. The accident occurred after the Ebenezer Academy school bus was reportedly hit by a Mercedes-Benz truck that was traveling from Eldoret towards Webuye town. A fundraiser was held on Wednesday to raise money for the burial activities. So quite a somber mood, as you know, 7 pupils are being laid to rest. Now, still in the western part of Kenya, war on corruption, crack the whip on NHIF cartels. Governor Baraza urges Ruto, says poor management of public insurer is hurting citizens who contribute billions of shillings. And I believe we listened to that earlier on when Kakamega Governor Fernandez Baraza urged President William Ruto to crack the whip on rogue officials perpetrating alleged graft at the National Hospital Insurance Fund. Baraza warned the consequences of bad leadership at the top national insurer will be felt by citizens. So mismanagement of funds is one big problem that this country continues to face. You know, you pay taxes, but you're not really sure whether your taxes are put to good use or the funds are managed appropriately. Look at the situation or the instance of the NHIF cover, where just a few weeks ago the government said, you know, it was broke, but then later on there's a quick rectification on that statement by CS Susan Wafula Nakumicha, who says no, the money is there. So those kind of situations is what really casts a lot of spotlight on these public institutions that handle millions of money or tenders that you pay for as a taxpayer. And it's just a matter of, you know, hope and wait and see to see whether or not things will be handled appropriately in due time. Now, the Daily Nation, nurses, clinical workers issued 2-week strike notice, also as a story that we covered earlier on. Organization has demanded that NHIF hold a public forum to assure Kenyans of better services. The Kenya Health Professional Society has issued a 2-week ultimatum to the government demanding commitment to recruit 20,000 healthcare workers yearly. The union has set a deadline of July 13th for a number of grievances to be addressed, failing to which its members will down their tools in preparation for a nationwide strike. Now, such an irony that the clinical workers as well as nurses unions are demanding that there should be recruitment of 20,000 healthcare workers yearly. But then if you look at the situation like in Nakuru County, where they've just let off about 500 workers, so it really goes against what the workers union want. But also it's a question of, can the government really afford paying more than 20,000 healthcare practitioners? It's not just a matter of taking them in, you also need to put them either on contract basis or on permanent basis. So they're also protesting the 2.75% that the government has proposed as a contribution towards the NHIF, says that it will provide a sense of equity, arguing that it wouldn't provide a sense of equity, regardless of the fact that the government says the 2.75% provides a sense of equity. So what it really means, the government, is that 2.75%, whether you earn a salary of let's say 20,000 or 30,000 or 50,000, do the 2.75% math on what your salary is, as well as contrary to whoever is earning maybe 100,000, 150,000, also just the same amount, 2.75%. So the balance and checks, maybe they really don't align, but the government says that is the plan to make it as much equitable as possible. Now, on the Daily Nation as well, the National Police Service Commission says it will not cede hiring promotion power. The Commission CEO says the Constitution gives it powers to recruit and to promote police officers. Now, these two offices, the NPSC, National Police Service Commission, as well as the Office of the Inspector General of Police, have been guns blazing against each other on just who has the power to hire police officers and who does not. Now, the NPSC, or the Police Service Commission, says it will not cede its constitutional power to recruit police officers to the Inspector General of Police and the Interior Ministry. The Commission Chief Executive Officer Peter Lilei told the Senate Committee on Cohesion and Equal Opportunity that whereas the High Court asked the Commission and the IG to seek an out-of-court settlement, it will not compromise on its constitutional power to recruit and promote police officers. The Commission and the IG, Japheth Koome, have been at loggerheads over the recent promotion of 500 police officers, and the standoff has seen the promotions be put on hold. Now, the Police Service Commission nullified the promotions done by IG Koome Japheth, opening a fresh front in long-running supremacy war between the Commission and the IG. Now, the Commission derives its powers and functions from Chapter 14 of the Constitution, which stipulates that the Commission shall recruit and appoint persons to hold or act in offices in the service, confirm appointments, also to determine promotions and transfers within the service, to exercise disciplinary control over and remove persons holding or acting in offices within the service, and perform any other functions prescribed by the national legislation. The National Police Service Act, on the other hand, empowers the IG to, among other functions, implement policy decisions, audit police operations and functions, coordinate all police operations, etc. So these two offices as well have been up in arms, not really up in arms, but have been gun blazing against each other on just who has the authority to make police appointments or to make police promotions and who does not. And so that is something also the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Professor Kithure Kindiki, weighed in on and said, it is a big shame that two of the most superior leaders within the security sector can be out, fighting over this kind of task. And so he gave out a stern warning to both of them. Whether they had it or not is a whole other question, because the infighting continues. But of course, it is something to keep up with. So what is happening in the world of sports? The Nairobi City Marathon, 2 days to go. And we are expecting over 10,000 athletes, world-class athletes, who will be competing at what they call Africa's most prestigious marathon, the Nairobi City Marathon. Now, defending men's champion says he has trained well, knows the roads of Nairobi well, and is confident of the victory on Sunday. The men's champion, Brimin Mesoy, who won the marathon last year, is hopeful and optimistic that he will be able to retain the same feat this year. Now, the second edition of the marathon, the richest in Africa in terms of winners' prize money, will be held on Sunday and majorly run on the Nairobi Expressway. So in advance, you should know the Nairobi Expressway will be impassable on Sunday. And that is, of course, one of the things that we'll be looking forward to this weekend, the Nairobi City Marathon, with just 2 days to go. Well, basically just one tomorrow, and then on Sunday it's the marathon. So Nairobi Expressway will be impassable for the better part of the morning as they race. Over 10,000 athletes will be attending, world class for that matter, and this is considerably one of the most prestigious in terms of award money or prizes money that will be giving out. Now, the winners' cash prize in the men's and women's 42-kilometer race will walk away with 3.5 million shillings each, and this is considerably less than the cash prize of 6 million shillings last year, but still the highest pass for the African marathon. So whoever will win will take home about 3.5 million shillings. Now, in the beach games, second Africa Beach Games tournament and qualifier for world contest scheduled for August in Indonesia, and the Kenya beach volleyball team looks to impress as they battle for the Bali Beach Dream, which will be held in August in Indonesia. Impressive wrestler Mahabila on course to punch ticket to the World Games, and it's easily among the world's most sought after touristic destination, which is Indonesia. And so the Kenya beach volleyball team players will be hoping to get that free ticket to the World Beach Games Bali in Indonesia in August, just depending on how they will perform. Now, what is the standard saying in the world of sports? SportPesa continues to bet on Kenya Sevens team. The National Rugby Sevens team Shujaa were painfully relegated from the World Rugby Sevens Series in May for the first time in 23 years. This was after losing 12-7 to Canada in the playoff final held at Twickenham Stadium in London. The heartbreaking loss sent Kenyan's players, technical bench, and the new federation officials back to the drawing board. Now, after very lengthy consultation, Shujaa have started the tedious walk back to the global series, which is a good thing. And the arduous journey was on Thursday supported by the gaming firm SportPesa, who came on board to boost the national team with 22 million shillings, and this will cater for logistics. So back to the drawing board it is, but they still have that support from SportPesa. Now, that basically does it for our session this morning. I hope you're up to date with what is making headlines across the country, as well as what is happening across the world of sports. Remember, it's the transfer window is still open, and we're expecting that it should close sometime in perhaps July or August before the league kickstarts once again in August for a fresh 2023-2024 season. And so there's really not much to report from across the globe, but just the transfer window, players moving from one club to the other. Now, that is where we wrap it up this morning. Thank you for your valuable company, and for those who've been watching us online, asante sana. I'm Cynthia Nanjala. Do enjoy the rest of your programming. Have a fantastic weekend.